obviously SK Gaming have picked Rune's Order, and it's their favorite map against Rogue Mage Druid. They can just kite around the center tomb, and then when the Rogue Mage Druid needs to retreat to try and get mana back, they stack up in the room and
They are going to be, of course, looking for Pride to get a good opener here, being very, very patient. Joe Fernandez going to try to disrupt that opener. Most likely going to see him Blaze Storm unless he gets cheap shot to try to break up that initial opener using Intimidating Shout and his Stormbolt.
Yeah, Pride moving in here, he just goes straight for the cheap shot on Joe Fernandez and the kidney shot onto Swapsy. The Iron Bark does come out, Botar gets caught into the deep freeze, into the polymorph as well. Are they going to be able to force the Shamanistic Rage out of Swapsy as well? That Iron Bark is about to wear off, and they do have the blind on the Botar that freaking it right away, but they're turning it around on a healing set. That was a big chunk of damage that he had to deal with, and he's actually running for his life right now.
Yeah, Swapsy and Joe are going very aggressive on healing set. He's going to the back. Skin is fading here. Joe is trying to finish him off. Swapsy needs to be able to reconnect. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to. Healing set trying to drag both of these melee DPS into the open at the moment to tee off for the next game. Is available. Skill cap to you. Just need to pull the trigger. They're actually going to make a swap over onto Botar. They drop the smoke bomb as well. He did pre-bear form. He's got Bark Skin up. He should be able to survive here. Vanish double eviscerate comes out from Prey. As long as Botar reacts appropriately, he should be able to make it out alive. He's going to shadow melt a little bit of incoming damage. Prey goes up. Does anything. Botar in full retreat, trying to displace back to the room. Joe Fernandez and Swapsy are going to keep him alive for a little bit longer, but that was a great expense.
And all he really has left is that Iron Bark. He gets caught in the stun, but Raikou taking a lot of damage down. Using his quick walk, he still has 2 available. He needs it. Looks like he's going to catch a huge heal and Colossus Smash is going to fade, but still, He's having a really hard time keeping up. Swapsy getting kidney shot though. Botar ended up taking Shamanistic Rage. Swapsy gets taking a lot of damage.
Still taking a lot of damage though. He does have to use that Bark Skin. He's just trying to get out of it. It's just so much damage now on the Pride. Down to 30% health there for just a second. The Feint is about to wear off. Do they have anything to penalize him for that? Does not look like they're going to. Just continually, this is what SK Gaming has done so many times, just switching targets back and forth, but now the Deep Freeze is coming out onto Botar. They could be in some trouble here on Swapsy. The Iron Bark comes out, and the Ring of Frost onto Botar as well.
Yeah, the Vigilance actually came out from Joe there, which was very important. His trinket is now down. Both players still cross CC'd. Luckily, Botar did pre-shapeshift the incoming Ring of Frost, so he cannot be polymorphed at the moment. Ice Combinatory is there from Raikou, trying to maybe get some surprise burst on the Swapsy right now. Botar is falling for it, and I think it's good that you realize the kill is lost. They need to peel for healing stat. He's caught into that full Stormbolt. He did pre-bear form, but he's still taking a significant amount of pressure at the moment. He's going to Iron Bark himself as he dips down to 46%. A swap now over onto Pride into execute range, and SK Gaming are going to bring the game back in a surprise fashion. Prey not responding appropriately there.
Wow, you saw the last thing that Pride did was actually hit prep. And so it was like, he was getting ready, he was like, hold on.
Joe Fernandez, one of my favorite interviews, like I was saying yesterday, he said that their team can just do random damage and kill someone at any point. They have very, very coordinated swaps, but at the same time, they can just put out that pressure together and get kills like that. It was amazing.
And we've talked about how these teams are so evenly matched, and now we're tied 1-1. We got a series.
These guys in their history playing against each other at the European Regionals and BlizzCon are now tied 6-6.
Still a tied ball game at this point, but they are going to be able to decide who is in fact the better. At the moment though, Skill Cap, you have the advantage of being the first winners on the first map, which means that it'll always go back to their map pick moving into the final game. So right here I would expect Tolvaron Arena to come out from Skill Cap. It's a much more expansive map, very big. They can kite around. They don't get clumped up like they just did there, where they could easily swap over to Prey right away. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do actually lead with the Tolvaron, if they're going to go with Tiger's Peak first, maybe leave Tolvaron as their last because it is their best map.
Yeah, and just looking back at that last game again, I think it's really, really important to note just how SK Gaming is actually able to set up kills like that. With that constant pinging back and forth between targets, it's really just almost impossible for healing stat to really keep ahead of the healing, because he'll get a full row of heal over time effects on one target, and then immediately they say, okay, well, you're healing that guy, so we're going to kill this guy instead. And he's like, oh, okay, I got to heal this guy. He's just pinging around back and forth, and that's a great way to just get ahead of the Resto Druid's ability to keep his team alive and just make sure that he really has never got an opportunity to top everyone off.
Not only that, the purges, there were so many purges out of Swapsy. He spent most of his time during that last game towards the end just spamming purge.
And that's what makes it so hard for healing stat to heal through the damage. He's just caught into bear, like you were saying, for so long to tank the damage. If he's not tanking that damage, then he's just going to go down. Even with Iron Bark, even with Barkskin, he needs to be in bear form as long as possible because he's just getting spam purge.
I wonder if Prey was actually maybe just trying to be greedy, maybe by holding on to the preparation. He wanted to save it for a vanish later on a setup, so maybe he just got caught off guard. But he did have the cooldowns to respond to that situation. So Skill Cap, you just need to keep a level head, realize, you know, it happens to the best of us. We don't press the ice wall, we don't press the dispersion. didn't happen yesterday. So there's a lot of pressure on the stage at the moment for these teams, and they need to keep a level head moving forward. Obviously, the momentum now swinging for SK Gaming.
Yeah, Prey is one of the most aggressive rogues that we've ever seen in World of Warcraft. He is no stranger to just going all in, and at that point, he tends to kind of forget that he needs to keep his feint active. And that's when those hard swaps can actually happen, where all of a sudden he takes a big chunk of damage. And even if he gets the feint up right afterwards, that's still a lot of health that's missing for him. And it can be very, very difficult for him to keep alive. And that's one thing that Joe Fernandez has been great at capitalizing on, is getting those storm bolts on him. We haven't seen it yet, but in the previous series that we've seen, Joe Fernandez is really good at noticing when those buffs fall off, when those defensive buffs fall off, and immediately punishing them for not keeping it active with that quick storm bolt charge swap.
And what's nice about that last game from SK Gaming is that they kept their aggression high. They didn't let the loss get to them. They didn't over-turtle and play defensive when they didn't need to. They were always in the face of skill cap EU, and you can see they applied so much pressure on them that they eventually just fall.
Right, what Bajira was saying about Joe Fernandez going on the offense while the CC was still, and they were killing Swapsy, and I would suspect most teams to get on stage after that first loss and go, all right, I'm never doing that again. But they stayed offensive the entire time, like you were saying, just kept the momentum going.
Yep, okay, so just to take a quick look at the last few moments of that last match, we do have Jackson down at the main stage for the Windows 10 game DVR replay.
All right, thanks, Lore. So going into this match, we knew that Ruins of Lordaeron was going to be a rough matchup for our RMD over here, Skill Capped, but I want to look at this replay because I want to point out what SK Gaming is doing well. We know the RMD setup is that, you know, deep poly setup, but what SK Gaming is doing nearly every time is they're getting a DPS to around half health and then making a tremendous Stormbolt swap onto the enemy team's Resto Druid. Out of that swap, they have options. They can continue to train, but if the Resto Druid ever escapes, they're more than willing to just turn their damage onto the next target, which is Pry here. You can see Pry, he's kind of dodging back and forth. He doesn't want to go too far in there because he knows it's really easy for them to swap right over to him. You know, Joe Fernandez is Bladestorming there, cancels that Bladestorm, hits him with that Arms Warrior Execute, and Pry just evaporates before his eyes. So, we've seen two moments where these teams are going a little bit over aggressive. They're finding themselves in rough positions and they're paying for it. This is the BlizzCon. These are the grand finals. Small mistakes end up having big consequences. But these guys are playing awesome and I cannot wait to get down to the next match. So let's throw it over to the casters and get this thing going.
All right, thanks so much. And we do have the draft already ready to go for this next game. We're going to be getting into it very soon. But first we need to find out what map choice has been made as well as what comps have been locked in. If they do decide to switch over, there may be some situations in which going for that Holy Paladin Shatterplay comp might make sense for SK Gaming, but
I think the only time they would do the Holy Paladin Shatterplay is when they're playing on a map that they're already disadvantaged with playing Rogue Mage Druid. So maybe after this, if they get the win and we bounce back into Dalaran Arena, then maybe try and change it up as a surprise. Obviously, they can afford to throw away the games on the maps that are disadvantaged as they did win the first.
Yeah, and of course, we do actually have that draft ready so we can see what map these teams have selected going forward as well as their compositions. And it looks like we do have Tolvaron Arena. Like you were saying, Skill Cap EU wants to select that bigger map, gives them a bigger pillar to get to. They can kite away, recollect their cooldowns, get drinks if they need it. SK Gaming, of course, playing that Turbo Cleave once again. And yeah, it's just going to be a mirror match from these last games with a different arena.
Yeah, both these teams are really just clashing very aggressively. These are probably the fastest games that we've seen in the tournament thus far. You can tell that they're both out for blood and they both want the BlizzCon championship.
Yep, but before we move on any further, we do have a very quick team profile video to show you guys on Skillcapped EU.
Hello, my name is Raiku and I play Mage for Skillcapped EU.
Hello, my name is Healingstad and I will be playing Restoration Druid and Holy Paladin for Skillcapped.
I'm Pry and I play Rogue for Skillcapped.
I'm Ville, I'm the team captain of Skillcapped EU.
For us it's really important to be here because I think we are one of the strongest teams in EU.
We actually only came together about a week before the first qualifier, yeah. We had a little bit of a bumpy start, but our synergy's much stronger now.
We've prepared for every single team that's here.
None of the US teams have ever played at BlizzCon before. A lot of us have played at multiple regionals or qualified for multiple regionals.
Everyone underestimates North American teams. And I tell my team every time, don't underestimate them.
We are certain we're going to beat the NA teams at this BlizzCon.
I think there is no team I'm really scared of because we can beat every